The Prenup Chronicles, Love, Money, and 2.5%. Chapter 1. The Proposal. The autumn leaves crunched beneath Emma's boots as she followed Jack down the winding path of Riverside Park, the same path they'd walked 5 years ago on their first date. Back then, they'd laughed over lukewarm coffee and debated whether Die Hard was a Christmas movie. Emma's insistence that it was had nearly derailed the evening. Now, the air smelled of cinnamon and wood smoke, and Jack's hand trembled slightly in hers. A detail she filed away, heart-skipping. "Remember this spot?" he asked, stopping beneath the oak tree where they'd shared their first kiss. Its branches glowed amber in the sunset, and Emma's cheeks flushed with the memory. Before she could reply, Jack dropped to one knee, pulling out a velvet box. The ring inside caught the light like a trapped star, but it was his words that stole her breath. "Emma Chen," he said, voice cracking in that way. It only did when he was dead serious. "You're the best risk I've ever taken. Let's build something that lasts forever. Marry me." She said yes before he finished the sentence, champagne bubbles and giddy kisses sealing the promise. But as Jack slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit because of course he'd secretly measured her soda can tab bracelet, Emma's stomach fluttered with something sharper than joy. Maybe it was the way he'd said risk, like love was a stock portfolio. Or how his lawyer brother Liam had jokingly texted earlier, "Don't spend his crypto millions without me." Later, as they clinked glasses at their favorite dive bar, Jack's phone buzzed with a calendar alert, "Meeting Wa Attorney, 10 a.m. He swiped it away too fast, but not fast enough. "Everything okay?" Emma asked, leaning into the warmth of his shoulder. "Perfect," he said, kissing her temple. "Just future stuff." The word future hung between them, sweet and heavy, as the ring on her hand. The next morning, Emma woke up to the golden glow of dawn streaming through their bedroom window. Jack was already gone. He wasn't an early riser, not unless something was important. Her phone buzzed. A message from Jack. Meeting took longer than expected. "See you for lunch?" She stared at the text, a strange tightness in her chest. It wasn't like Jack to be cryptic, and she couldn't shake the feeling that his future stuff had a lot more to do with lawyers than wedding plans. So she did something she hadn't done in years. She opened his laptop. Jack was the kind of person who didn't believe in passwords for personal devices. "If I have nothing to hide, why lock it?" he always said. But now, as the screen flickered to life, Emma almost wished he had. Because there, open on his browser, was a document titled Prenuptial Agreement, Draft 3. And highlighted in yellow, as if waiting for her to read, was a single clause. In the event of divorce, the spouse shall receive 2.5% of total net worth. Emma stared at the screen, her breath coming in short, shallow bursts. 2.5%? It felt cold, calculated, like a number on a balance sheet. Her engagement ring suddenly felt a little heavier, and for the first time since saying yes, she wondered if she'd made a mistake. Would she confront him? Would she pretend she hadn't seen it? And more importantly, what else was he hiding? The second prenup suggestion. The cafe's espresso machine hissed like a warning. Emma stirred her oat milk latte, watching the cinnamon dissolve into a murky swirl. Across the table, Jack's knee bounced under the reclaimed wood surface, rattling the sugar packets in their jar. He'd chosen their usual spot, the corner with the chipped mural of Paris, and the barista who memorized their orders, as if nostalgia could soften the blow. "So," he began, thumb tracing the rim of his cold brew, "my financial advisor we think it's smart to get a prenup." The word landed like a dropped spoon. Clang. Emma's grip tightened on her mug. She'd rehearsed this moment since finding the draft on his laptop 2 weeks ago, scripting calm, rational responses in the shower. But now, all she heard was the echo of his proposal. "You're the best risk I've ever taken." "Define smart," she said, her voice steady in a way that surprised her. Jack leaned forward, the morning sunlight catching the silver in his stubble. "It's not about us, Em. The startup's valuation just hit 8 figures. Investors want assurances, and And I'm a liability? The words flew out sharper than she'd intended. No, it's about protecting you too. If something happens... When? She interrupted. A couple at the next table glanced over. Emma lowered her voice. You said if something happens. Not if, Jack. When? His jaw twitched. She recognized the tell, the same one he'd had when pitching his company to skeptical venture capitalists. He's negotiating, she realized. With me. The barista chose that moment to refill their water, the ice cubes cracking like tiny bones. When she left, Jack slid a manila folder across the table. Emma didn't need to open it to know what was inside, but this time she noticed something new. A post-it note stuck to the front in Liam's aggressive scrawl. Stop being sentimental? She'll sign. Her stomach twisted. Your brother's involved? Emma's laugh came out brittle. Of course he is. Does he get a vote at our wedding too? Jack's phone buzzed. She glimpsed the notification before he flipped it over. Liam, did you tell her about the sunset clause? Emma's eyes narrowed. What's a sunset clause? Nothing. Jack pocketed the phone too quickly. Look, we can customize everything. The 2.5% is just a starting point. We'll make it fair. Fair. The words slithered between them. Emma's mind flashed to last month when Jack had quietly upgraded their apartment lease to a penthouse without asking. It's an investment, he'd said, for us. She stood abruptly, chair scraping against the concrete. You want to talk numbers? Let's talk numbers. 5 years, 7 vacations, 382 I love yous. What's the percentage on that, Jack? The cafe fell silent. A single drip of latte slid down her mug like a tear. Jack reached for her hand, but she stepped back, the engagement ring catching the light, a prism fracturing sunlight into colors. Please, let's just... You scheduled the attorney meeting the morning after you proposed, her voice broke. Was that in the risk assessment too? His face drained of color. How did you... The answer clicked in his eyes as she turned to leave. For the first time, Emma saw fear on his face. Not of losing her, but of being seen. She was halfway to the door when he said it. There's a trust fund. Emma froze. Jack exhaled slowly, like he was unraveling some invisible knot in his chest. My parents set it up when I sold the company, he said, quieter now. If we don't sign the prenup by the wedding date, it dissolves. The espresso machine screamed again. Emma turned back, her pulse pounding in her ears. Jack's face was unreadable, a mask she no longer recognized. How much? She asked. He told her. The number hung between them, a grenade with the pin half pulled. Emma swallowed. Her fingers curled against her palm, nails pressing into skin. Wow, she whispered. That's a lot of zeros. Jack searched her face, eyes pleading. It's just paperwork, Em. It won't change us. Emma let out a shaky breath. Won't it? Silence. She turned, stepping into the autumn breeze. The cafe door swung shut behind her with a finality she didn't expect. And for the first time in 5 years, Emma wasn't sure if Jack would follow. Third, the first discussion. Expanded. The storm outside their apartment mirrored the chaos in Emma's chest. Rain slashing the windows, thunder growling like a warning. She couldn't escape the tension crackling between them, an invisible thread pulled too tight, ready to snap. Jack had ordered her favorite takeout, Thai drunken noodles with extra basil, and lit the cedarwood candle she loved, trying so hard to create a sense of calm. But nothing felt calm. Nothing was simple anymore. The prenup draft sat between them on the coffee table, its pages crisp and accusing. Emma could almost feel it breathing, a silent witness to everything unspoken. It's just paperwork, Em. Jack's voice broke the silence, softer than the flickering candlelight. Like health insurance. You hope you never need it, but you still pay the premium, Emma finished, staring at the way his thumb nervously traced the edge of his phone. She couldn't shake the feeling that he was waiting for something, someone. She didn't want to ask, didn't want to know. Her eyes flicked back to the document in front of her. She picked it up slowly, her fingers trembling slightly as she skimmed over the legal jargon. But one phrase caught her eye. In the event of dissolution. The words felt like ice against her skin. They froze her. every emotion locking tight in her chest. You realize this says, I get nothing from your company? Not even the shares you promised me when we moved in together? Emma's voice shook more than she intended. Jack stiffened, his eyes flicking toward her. That was before the Series A funding. The board insists. The board? Emma let out a harsh laugh, sharp enough to cut glass. We're sitting in our pajamas, Jack. Are they here too? Hiding under the couch? Jack's lips tightened, a thin line of frustration drawing across his face. He reached for her hand, but Emma jerked back, the engagement ring glinting in the low light like an accusation. You think I want this? Jack's voice cracked, raw in a way she'd never heard before. My lawyers, Liam, the investors, they're all screaming that a divorce could tank the company. This clause? He tapped the 2.5% line with his index finger, his knuckles white with the pressure. It's the only way I can protect us from them. The words stung, but something in Emma softened. For a heartbeat, she saw the boy who'd sold his vintage Star Wars figures to pay for her emergency root canal, the boy who'd kept her middle school doodles above his desk. She remembered the promises, the late-night talks about dreams, about the future. But then his phone buzzed. Once, twice, and Emma's heart stopped. His eyes flicked to the screen, too fast for her to catch the name. She had seen that look before. Distracted, evasive, like something was more important than her, than this conversation. Answer it, she dared, her voice tight. It's not important. Jack's response was quick, too quick. Answer it. With a sigh of reluctance, Jack unlocked his phone and opened the message. Emma's eyes caught a glimpse of the name, Liam, and just under it, two pulsing words, Sunset Clause. Before she could react, Jack's fingers flew across the keyboard, deleting the message. It happened so fast, but she saw it, and it was like a switch flipped inside her. What aren't you telling me? She whispered, her voice barely audible in the dim room. The space between them seemed to shrink as the storm outside raged on. The room felt smaller, more suffocating, and in the sudden silence, Emma's eyes darted across the apartment, searching for any clue that could explain what was happening. Then she saw it, a sliver of paper peeking from beneath the couch. Her pulse quickened. She moved faster than she'd planned, grabbing the paper and yanking it free. Her breath caught in her throat when she saw it, a receipt. Bouquet, winter peonies, $180. Her favorite flowers, the ones currently wilting in a vase by the window. Jack hadn't been home that day. She stared at the receipt, her blood turning cold. Her voice came out in a tight, angry whisper. Who were the flowers for, Jack? His face drained of color. What? Emma slammed the receipt on the table, her hand shaking as she pointed at the date. You bought these on Tuesday. You told me you were in back-to-back meetings until midnight. So who? Before she could finish, the doorbell rang. 3 sharp, impatient chimes. Jack shot to his feet, but Emma was faster. She yanked the door open, barely able to catch her breath. A deliveryman stood there, holding a massive bouquet of winter peonies, identical to the ones in the vase. The card attached fluttered to the floor. Emma snatched it up before he could stop her. Her eyes scanned the writing, her heart thudding in her chest. To my favorite risk, let's discuss the sunset clause over dinner. L. The world tilted. Liam? The same name as the text on Jack's phone. Another L. She couldn't breathe. The flower's scent filled her nostrils, but it no longer smelled sweet. It felt cloying, poisonous. I can explain. Jack's voice was shaky, but Emma didn't wait. She stumbled back, the card crumpling in her fist. You lied, she breathed. The flowers, the meetings, the clauses. What else? Do you even want to marry me, or is this all some merger? The storm raged outside, a deep rumble of thunder echoing through the apartment. The lights flickered, once, twice, plunging them into darkness. The room went silent, and then the power surged back. Jack's phone lay face up on the couch, the screen illuminating with a new message. Emma's blood turned to ice as her eyes locked on the subject line. Subject, urgent, sunset clause. Revisions. From Liam Carter. Body. Jack. She can't know about the infidelity rider. Delete this now. The screen went black. Her stomach dropped. Infidelity Rider. The words echoed in her mind like a drumbeat. Emma froze, the room spinning around her. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. The silence between them was thick, suffocating, but she couldn't look away. Jack whispered her name from the shadows, his voice barely audible. But Emma was already gone.